Hi guys. Today I want to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart, something that I learned that I didn't know, and I know somebody needs to hear this today. Maybe it's you, maybe it's somebody that you know. But have you ever been in grief? Have you ever grieved something? And I think it's important to know what the definition of grief is. And grief is a normal response to any significant loss. And you guys might be going, well, what does significant mean? It means if it's significant to you, then it's significant. Like you determine whether it is a significant loss or not. And today I'm here to give you permission to grieve, and you'll kind of understand what I mean as we go through this. But being in grief and mourning doesn't mean that your faith is failing. It doesn't mean that you're not a person of faith or your faith isn't strong enough because you're grieving. Grieving is actually a normal, not fun, but a normal human response to any significant loss. And grief is a process. Sorry, my glasses are glaring from the computer here. The thing about grief is usually you don't have much control in it, but there are things that you can do. Some things that we grieve as people, obviously the death of a loved one, but also the loss of a dream or what we think should have happened or what should have been, losing a job, losing a relationship, or hoping maybe that one of our relationships would be closer than it is, would be more intimate than it is, and we're just not there. It's just not as close as we want it to be. Losing a home, losing a church family, moving away from a place and just grieving, your neighborhood and your friend group and the place where you were, and everything that you knew is gone, it is taken away from you. Trying to find a new place for yourself or in life. And I've grieved several things. I mean, I've grieved, our miscarried babies in heaven. I've grieved losing a church family when God clearly told us it was time to move on, things that we didn't know and then were made aware of. Losing kind of a place where we lived in life and having to uproot and move to another place. Losing a relationship in the respect that, oh man, I wish this relationship was closer than it is. It's just not. And you feel that tugging at your heart and that heartbreak and pain. There's so many different things that we can grieve as people, and it doesn't discount the faith in God that we have. It's a normal human response to any significant loss. So many things we can grieve. Things we wished we hoped were different. Things we had and then lost. But one thing that I've learned about grief is that someone doesn't get through grief by pretending that it doesn't exist. Like when I deny my own feelings and try to pretend like I'm still not hurt, I'm still not feeling that, and I try to ignore or push down those feelings, it doesn't help me get through grief more, and it doesn't take it away. Usually it creates more problems in our life because we come up with coping skills to try to account for how we're feeling because we're stuffing them down, and it doesn't make it better, and it doesn't make it go away. What I've learned at facing my truth and how I feel in my hurt is the only way I can get through it and process it to a better place with God's help. Facing our grief is actually the healthy way to do it, the healthy thing to do. Is it hard? Absolutely. Is it painful? Most definitely. But not as painful as pretending as if we're not still hurting. You guys, if I were to pretend that I'm not still hurting, I'm actually breaking my own heart by not recognizing and accepting like that my own heart is breaking. Like I'm rejecting myself. I'm breaking my own heart to not admit my truth. And actually facing grief, believe it or not, is actually freeing and empowering, because that's the true reality of the state that I'm in. To feel my feelings, to accept and recognize my pain. So it actually destroys me when I pretend like it's not there. I break my own heart when I don't feel my own feelings. And we shouldn't let other people try to convince us that it doesn't really hurt, that we shouldn't be in that place still. Like their perspective is not your truth, is not my truth. Their opinion doesn't keep my heart from hurting. So don't be afraid to stand up for how you feel, to speak and to live your truth in the face of people who don't understand or support you. There will always be people who don't understand where you're at and who don't support you. Sometimes it's really hard when those people are people you thought were close to you, you thought would be there with you and understand you, and they just don't. I had people who thought I should be done with grieving after a few months. Really? Yeah, and if you've ever been in significant grief, you know it just doesn't stop like that or when we want it to or in a few months. They tried to give me advice about a place they had never been. Have you gotten some of that? Have you felt the pain of people? And I'm sure they just want you to stop hurting. Like I'm sure their heart is in the right place and they're just uncomfortable. They're sad for you, but you can't let that pressure come onto you. It's like a false expectation. Like they cannot expect you to be there, and you can't put that on yourself either. Even I tried to stop my grief and push it away and be like, I want to be done with this. I want to be over this. And so I'm going to buck up. I'm going to do it. And if you've ever been in grief, you know you are not in control of how long it lasts. It has its own timeline. And so if you're still hurting in your grief, or maybe you're hearing this right now and you're going, oh my gosh, as she's talking, I realize I am still hurting in my grief. Like I still feel this pain. Like as she's talking, I'm realizing I've tried to ignore it. I've tried to push it down. I've tried to let people tell me how to feel or that I should stop. So if this is you, if you're still hurting, I'm here to tell you, you have permission to grieve. I'm giving you permission right now to feel your feelings and to be in your grief. You have permission to grieve. Don't let anybody tell you how you should feel. They're not in your shoes. They're not in your circumstance. Don't let anybody put pressure on you to be done with grieving if your heart is still broken. I'm sorry to say, not even I was in control when I would process through my grief or get to a better place. It was just a process I had to get there. So I see you. You have permission to grieve. I'm here to tell you that you had a real loss. It has really hurt your heart. Take all the time you need to grieve, to feel your feelings. This is significant for you, which means it's significant. In Galatians 6:2, it says, help carry each other's burdens. In this way, you will follow Christ's teaching. And in Romans 12:15, it says, when others are happy, be happy with them. And when they're sad, be sad. That means those of us who've walked through grief, We know what it feels like, and we understand that it hurts. It's hard. It's a process. And I may not understand your specific situation, but I know what it's like to grieve. And so I'm joining you today in your grief. I'm supporting you and saying, you take all the time you need. You grieve. It's significant. And I understand what it feels like to be heartbroken. I don't know if this spoke to you today or if there's somebody you need to share this with, but I also want to just extend some love to you. Feel free to reach out to me at Laurie@myloveandgrace.com. That is my email. I would love to pray for you. And I can tell you, when I was really grieving significantly, it helped me a lot to know that I wasn't alone, that some people said, hey, I'm praying for you, or some people would pray with me. And so feel free to reach out to me. You can private message me, you can put something in the comments, or you can email me, Laurie@myloveandgrace.com. Anyway, I'm sorry if this is where you're at. And I know what a hard season and place this is. And the other thing I want to say about that is sometimes our grief can last for a shorter period of time, like months, and sometimes it can be years. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you if you're grieving longer, and it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you if you grieved shorter. It doesn't say anything about the significance of your loss. It's still just as important. Does that make sense? So I don't want you to trap yourself in a timeline of, I haven't grieved long enough, or I'm grieving too long, or that it says anything about the love or a loved one or your loss. Anyway, I'm sorry that you're in this place, and I do understand what grief feels like. And so I'm giving you permission to grieve and feel your feelings.